Hello everyone, welcome back to Concept-Wise Learning Hub. In today's class, we are going to begin one of the most important topics in teaching aptitude, which is teaching, its concepts, objectives, levels, and requirements. Students, before we start, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever thought about what teaching actually means? Many people believe that teaching simply means standing in front of a class and explaining a lesson. But is that really teaching? Imagine a teacher speaks continuously for 1 hour. The students listen quietly, but after the class, they cannot answer even a single question. Can we say that effective teaching has taken place? The answer is no, because teaching is not judged by how much the teacher speaks. Teaching is judged by how much the students learn. This is one of the most important idea you should remember not only for the UGC NET exam but also if you wish to become an effective teacher in future. Today's lecture will help us to understand what teaching really means, why teaching is considered both an art and a science, the objectives of teaching, the three domains of learning, how these concepts are connected with Bloom's taxonomy. So keep your notes ready and let's begin. What is teaching? Teaching is much more than delivering information. It is a planned, systematic, and purposeful process that helps learners acquire knowledge, develop skills, shapes attitudes, and build values. The purpose of teaching is not only to make students remember facts, but also to help them to think, understand, apply, analyze, and solve problems. Next is definition of teaching. One of the most important definition for UGC NET is given by Gage. He defines teaching as a teaching is a form of interpersonal influence aimed at changing the behavior of another person. So let's understand this definition in a simple language. What does interpersonal influence means? It means there is an interaction between two people. In teaching, these two people are the teacher and the learner. Teaching is not a one-way activity. It is a two-way process. The teacher guides, motivates, explains and asks questions and encourages students to participate. Through this interaction, the learner's behavior changes happen. So what does behavior change means? Students' behavior does not simply mean changing someone's habit. In education, behavior change includes knowledge, thinking ability, skills, attitudes, and values. For example, before attending a class on environment conservation, students may not care about saving water. After learning about environmental issues, the student starts to conserve water and spreading awareness among others. What change has happened here? Not only the student's knowledge but also the student's attitude and behavior. This is the real purpose of teaching. Students, this is another favorite UGC NET question. Many examinations ask whether teaching is an art or a science. The correct answer is teaching is both an art and a science. Let us understand why. Teaching as an art. Teaching requires creativity. Every class is different and every student learns differently. A good teacher knows how to explain difficult concepts using stories, diagrams, activities, and examples. This creativity makes teaching an art. For example, imagine you are teaching the concepts of demand and supply. Instead of only writing definition on the board, you can ask students, why do mango price increase during the off season? Students immediately connect the concepts with real life. This is an art of teaching. Next, teaching as a science. Teaching is also a science because it follows educational principles, learning theories, research findings, psychological concepts, planned teaching methods. Teacher plan lessons, set objectives, Choose appropriate methods, assess learning, and evaluate outcomes systematically. This makes teaching scientific. For example, suppose you are learning to ride a bicycle. Your instructor first explains the basics, then demonstrate the process. Next, allow you to practice. Finally, he observes your performance and provides feedback. This planned sequence reflects the scientific nature of teaching. Our next topic is characteristics of teaching. So, good teaching has certain important characteristics. The first one is it is purposeful. Every lesson has clear objectives. Teachers should know what students are expected to learn by the end of the class. The next is interactive. Teaching is not monologue. Students should ask questions, discuss ideas, actively participate. Learning becomes meaningful through interaction. Next is brings behavioral change. The ultimate aim of teaching is to improve learners' knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values. Next is it is a continuous process. Teaching is an ongoing process. Learning does not end after one lecture. It continues through revision, assignments, discussions, and practical experience. Next is it is learner centric. Modern teaching focus on learner rather than only on teacher. Students actively construct knowledge through participation and inquiry. Students, remember the word teach. T for transform behavior, E engage learner, A achieve objective, C communicate clearly, H helps learning. Whenever you think of teaching, remember teach. Now we have understood what teaching is. So let's move on to the next important topic, objectives of teaching. So, teaching is not conducted randomly. It is conducted to achieve certain learning outcomes. According to Bloom's taxonomy, the objectives of teaching can be grouped into three major categories or domains. That is, first one is cognitive domain, the second one is affective domain, and the third one is psychomotoric domain. Students, these three domains are extremely important for UGC NET and questions are asked almost every year. So let's understand each one in detail. Cognitive domain. The word cognitive relates to the mind. It deals with knowledge, understanding, thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. Whenever students learn new information or apply concepts, they are working in the cognitive domain. For example, a mathematics teacher explains how to solve quadratic equations. Students understand the formula and solve problem independently. This is cognitive learning. The activities included in cognitive domain includes remembering facts, understanding concepts, applying formulas, analyzing informations, evaluating arguments, creating new ideas. Next topic is affective domain. Students, learning is not only about knowledge, it is also about feelings, attitudes, emotions, and values. This is called affective domain. For example, after attending a lecture on environmental conservation, students begin planting trees and avoid plastics. Their attitude has changed. This is affective learning. Other examples include respecting teachers, helping classmates, developing empathy, appreciating art and culture, following ethical values. And education should not only produce intelligent people, it should also produce responsible, ethical, and compassionate citizens. That is the purpose of affective domain. The next topic is psychomotoric domain. Students, the third objective of teaching is psychomotoric domain. This domain focuses on physical skills and practical performance. Learning by doing is the key idea here. So, for example, performing laboratory experiments, operating machineries, drawing engineering diagrams, conducting science practicals, typing on a computer, etc. From a real life example is a B.Ed student practices classroom teaching during an internship. The students learn how to write on the board, manage the classroom, and communicate effectively. These practical teaching skills belong to psychomotor domain. Students, remember this simple formula: head, heart, hands. Here head is related to cognitive, that is it helps to in our thinking. So next is heart. Heart is related to affective domain, it is related to our feelings. And hand is related to psychomotoric domain, it is related to doing or doing practical things. So now we are going to compare the three domains or the three objectives of teaching. So remember the formula, that is head, heart and hand. So head is related to cognitive domain and heart is related to affective domain and hand is related to psychomotoric domain. So head or the cognitive domain focuses on knowledge, thinking and reasoning skills, and the affective domain focuses on our feelings, attitudes and values. And psychomotoric domain focuses on the physical skills and practical performance. So whenever we hear the word the three domains of Bloom's taxonomy, we should remember the formula head, heart and hand. Our next topic is levels of teaching. So according to educational psychology, there are three levels of teaching representing increasing levels of thinking and cognitive engagement. So the first one is memory level, the second is understanding level, and the third is reflective level. So memory level, here the lowest level of teaching is happening because it focuses on recalling and memorizing facts. For example, in a classroom, if the teacher explains a definition in the text from the textbook and the students repeat them exactly as they are written in the textbooks, so here the students, what are they doing? Just recollecting or memorizing the facts in the textbook and they are giving the answer. So it is based on lowest level of teaching. They are just recalling and giving the answer. So it is the lowest level of teaching happening here. And there next is understanding level of. Here the middle level of teaching is happening. So it focuses on conceptual clarity and application. For example, in a classroom, if a teacher explains concepts using examples, students understand the idea and answer the questions in their own words. So here what is happening? They are understanding the concepts and they are giving answer in their own words. So here the focus is on conceptual clarity and application. So it is an example of understanding level. So here the middle level of teaching is happening. So next is reflective level. It is the highest level of teaching. So it focuses on critical thinking and independent reasoning. So here for example, in a classroom, the teacher presents a real life problem. So students discuss, analyze, debate and suggest different solutions. So here what is happening? They are analyzing the fact and finding a solution for it. So it is based on what they are doing. It is focused on critical thinking and independent reasoning. So it is based on it is an example of reflective level. Here highest level of teaching is happening. So always remember this trick, that is when you hear the levels of teaching, MUR. So memory level, understanding and reflective level. It is very important topic in UGC NET exam. Next we will learn memory level of teaching in details. So here what is memory level? It is the lowest level of teaching and its primary objective is to help students remember facts, definitions, formulas, names, dates and concepts. At this level, students are expected to memorize information rather than understanding it deeply. So here are some characteristics of memory level learning. The first one is it is teacher centered. The teachers play the major role. Students mainly listen, observe and remember the facts. Here interaction is very limited. So next is passive learning. Next characteristics is passive learning. So students receive information but do not actively analyze or question it. Their learning mainly depends on repetition and practice. So it is just students have no role in memorizing level of teaching. Next is suitable for beginners. When students are introducing to a complete new subjects, some amount of memorization is necessary. For example, before solving mathematical problem, students must first remember the formula. So in like that situation, this memory level of teaching is suitable. Next, we always have to remember this trick. Whenever we hear level of teaching, it is associated with Herbart. So here we have given a small trick. Herbart equal to heart story memories, because it is related to memory level of learning. So it is very important topic, and we have always has to remember this trick, that whenever we hear the memory level of teaching, it is related to Herbart. Next, our topic is advantages and limitations of memory level of teaching. So, memory level of teaching is useful because it builds the foundation of knowledge. Students learn basic concepts. It prepares learners for a higher level of understanding, and it improves recall abilities. And it has certain limitations because memorization alone cannot develop. So here it is not suitable for creativity, problem solving skills, critical thinking ability, and logical reasoning. These higher ability requires deeper understanding. So here is a memory tip, that is whenever we see the words, these words, that is memorize, recalls, and reproduce in questions, it will be always related to memory level of teaching. Next is understanding level of teaching. The understanding level of teaching is much higher than memory level. Here, the students do not simply memorize information. Instead, they understand the concepts, establish relationships, explain ideas, and apply knowledge to different situations. So here are some important characteristics of understanding level. The first is conceptual learning. Students understand why a concept exists instead of memorizing the definitions. They understand their meanings. So next is active participation. Here students actively participate in the classroom. So the students will ask questions, answer questions, discuss concepts, and solve problems. Learning becomes more interactive. The next is teacher as a guide. Unlike memory level teaching, the teacher is not simply delivering information. The teacher guides the students towards understanding. Next is application of knowledge. Students apply concepts to new situations. So learning become more meaningful. For example, a mathematics teacher explains why the Pythagorean theorem works rather than asking students to memorize the formula. Students understand the logic and can solve the different types of problems. The understanding level of learning is associated with Morrison. So Morrison makes meaning, that is meaning equal to understanding level. Next is advantages and limitations of understanding level learning. So the advantages are, it helps the students to develop conceptual clarity, improves reasoning ability, enables application of knowledge, builds confidence, and prepares for higher order thinking. So the limitations are also, although this level develops understanding, students may still not independently analyze completely new situations. That requires a reflective level of teaching, the highest level, where the students think critically and solve problems of their own. Next is reflective level of teaching. It is the highest level of teaching. For example, in a classroom, if we give a topic that is artificial intelligence is replacing many jobs, do you think it can replace teachers? Why or why not? So here the students analyze, argue, evaluate, and arrive at their own conclusion. This is reflective level thinking. So reflective level teaching develops critical thinking, independent thinking, logical reasoning, problem solving, creativity, and decision making. Instead of giving answers, the teacher encourages students to discover answers themselves. So this reflective level of teaching is associated with Hunt. Hunt reflects, that is reflective level of teaching. So next topic is characteristics of reflective level teaching. The first one is student centered. So students here actively participate in learning. The teacher does not dominate the classroom. Instead, students discuss, analyze, questions and investigate. For example, instead of explaining climate change completely, the teacher asks what measures can our college adopt to reduce carbon emissions. Students think independently and suggest practical solutions. The next is problem solving approach. Teaching begins with a problem rather than a definition. So students investigate the problem, collect information, analyze facts and propose solutions. For example, a commerce teacher asks why do some business fail even though they have good products? Students analyze marketing, finance, management, competition and customers' behavior. Learning become more meaningful. Next is critical thinking. Students do not accept every statement blindly. They evaluate evidence. They question assumptions. They compare viewpoints. This develops intellectual maturity. For example, if a teacher asks, is online education better than the classroom education? Instead of giving a direct answer, students analyze both the advantages and disadvantages. This is reflective level learning. So next is teachers act as a facilitator. So here that in reflective level teaching, the teacher is not merely an instructor. The teacher becomes a guide, facilitator and motivator. The teacher creates situations where the students discover knowledge themselves. Next is reflective level advantages and limitation. The main advantages of reflective levels are it helps in developing critical analytical ability, it improves creativity, it strengthens decision making, it solves real life problems, it develops independent learners and prepares students for research. And the limitations are it requires skilled teachers, motivated students, more classroom time, and interactive learning environment. It requires an interactive learning environment. Therefore, it is generally used in higher education rather than primary classes. So whenever we saw the main keywords like critical thinking, problem solving, independent learning, research, creativity, we should remember it is will be based on reflective level teaching. So here we will compare the three levels of teaching. First one is memory. Memory level of teaching is associated with Herbart and it focuses on recall and memorization. And the role here of the teacher's role in memory level of teaching is instructor and the student's role is passive learners or passive listeners. So next is understanding level. Understanding level is associated with Morrison and it focuses on concepts and application. And the role of teacher here is guide and the student's role is active participants. Next is reflective level of teaching. It is associated with Hunt and here the focus is on critical thinking and problem solving and the role of a teacher is facilitator and the student's role is here is independent thinker. So it is one of the important topic of UGC NET exams. Memory tricks for level of teaching is explained in the slide. So here Herbart memorize, Morrison understands and Hunt reflects. So this is an important trick to be remembered for UGC next exam. So Herbart is associated with memory level of teaching and Morrison is associated with understanding level of teaching and Hunt is associated with reflective level of teaching. In today's class, we have discussed the teaching definition that is a teaching is a planned purposeful process of behavioral change and we have also studied teaching as both as a teaching is both an art and a science and then we have moved to the next topic that is three domains or Bloom's taxonomy that is cognitive that is related to head and affective that is related to heart and psychomotor that is related to hand. That is cognitive is related to our memory power and affective is related to our values and attitude and psychometric is our physical activity or our practical skill. Next is 3 levels of teaching. That is, we studied that is memory level, understanding and reflective. Memory is the base level, and understanding is the middle level, and reflective is the highest level. And memory level is associated with Herbart, understanding by is associated with Morrison, and reflective level is associated by Hunt. Then reflective level is the highest, and teachers become, here the teacher become a facilitator, and students become independent critical thinkers and problem solvers. So characteristics of a good teaching is, it should be purposeful, there should be an objective, it should be interactive. There it is a teaching is a two-way process, and it is a continuous process, and learner centered. No, always the teacher should be learner centered, and it should brings behavioral change. It is one of the most important topic in the definition of teaching. It always teaching always brings behavioral change in the students. If you found today's lecture helpful, please like, share, subscribe, and comment if you have any doubt to Concept Wise Learning Hub, clear concept for smarter studies. So thank you for watching. See you in next class.